Security, get this man and his kid out of my building, now. Derek Manning's voice echoed across the marble lobby of Titan Financial. Every head turned, every conversation stopped. Marcus Washington stood frozen, his 6-year-old daughter's hand trembling in his. 2 security guards were already moving toward them. He had $47 left. His wife was buried 6 months ago. This interview was supposed to save them. But in exactly 12 minutes, the man who just ordered him removed would be begging for his help, because a crisis was coming that only Marcus could stop. And he would make them watch while he decided whether to save them at all. Comment your city below. Let me see how far this story travels. Security, get this man and his kid out of my building, now. Marcus didn't move. The words hit him like a slap, but he kept his feet planted on the marble floor. Beside him, Hope's grip tightened on his fingers. Daddy? It's okay, baby. It wasn't okay. Nothing had been okay for 2 years. But he said it anyway, because that's what fathers do. Derek Manning stood 15 feet away, his $3,000 suit perfectly pressed, his face twisted with disgust. Behind him, a blonde receptionist smirked. A young executive covered his mouth to hide a laugh. 2 security guards approached from the left. Sir, you need to come with us. Marcus turned to face them. I have an interview, 9 o'clock. Marcus Washington, check your list. The first guard hesitated. The second one didn't. Sir, we've been asked to escort you out. By who him? Marcus nodded toward Derek. He's not the CEO. He doesn't get to decide who interviews here. Sir. Check your list. The guard pulled out a tablet scrolling through names. His expression shifted. He's on here. Derek's face reddened. I don't care if he's on the list. Look at him. Look at what he brought. This is Titan Financial, not a daycare center. My babysitter canceled this morning. Marcus kept his voice level. I'm here for the quantitative analyst position. My qualifications are in your system. If you want to reject me after the interview, that's your right. But you don't get to reject me before I even open my mouth. Silence. The lobby had become a theater. 50 people watching. Waiting. Derek stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think you belong here? In those clothes with a child, you're wasting everyone's time. Maybe, but that's not your call to make. Actually, it is. I'm VP of Operations. I decide who... Derek. The voice came from behind them. Female, sharp, commanding. Everyone turned. A woman stepped out of the elevator. Mid-30s, Asian American. She moved like someone who owned not just the room, but the entire building. Because she did. Victoria Chen, CEO of Titan Financial Group. What's happening here? Derek's demeanor changed instantly. Victoria, this man brought a child to an interview. I heard what you were simply doing. The whole lobby heard. She looked at Marcus, then at Hope. What's your name? Marcus Washington. And this is... my daughter. Hope. Victoria crouched down to Hope's level. That's a beautiful teddy bear. Does it have a name? Hope pressed closer to Marcus's leg but answered. Mr. Buttons, my mommy gave him to me. Your mommy has excellent taste. Victoria stood facing Derek. Mr. Washington has an interview. He'll have it. Any questions? Derek's jaw tightened. Victoria, surely you can see. I can see a man who showed up on time despite obvious difficulties. I can see a child who's being braver than most adults in this room. And I can see a VP who's about to apologize for causing a scene in my lobby. She paused. Any questions? No. Good. Victoria turned to Marcus. Your interview is on the 12th floor. Conference room B. I'll have someone escort you. She walked away without looking back. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Hope tugged his hand. Daddy, I like her. Yeah, baby, me too. The elevator ride was silent. A young assistant named Kevin had been assigned to escort them. He kept glancing at Marcus, then looking away, clearly unsure what to say. For what it's worth, Kevin finally said. Derek's like that with everyone. It's not personal. It felt personal. Yeah, it always does. The elevator dinged. Here we go. Conference room B. The room was everything Marcus expected. Glass walls, mahogany table, art that cost more than his apartment, a view of Manhattan that screamed money and power. 3 people sat waiting. Derek, of course, he was on the panel, plus a sharp-featured woman named Patricia from HR, and Kevin, who took his seat looking uncomfortable. Marcus settled Hope in a corner with her coloring book. Daddy needs to talk to these people. You be my good luck charm, okay? Okay, Daddy. He sat down across from them. Derek didn't wait. Let's skip the pleasantries. Your resume has a 2-year gap. Explain. My wife died. The words landed like stones in still water. She had cancer. I took time off to care for her, then to care for my daughter. I worked part-time jobs that let me be there when Hope needed me. Patricia typed something on her tablet. So you prioritized personal matters over career development. I prioritize my family. Same thing. No, it's not. Derek leaned forward. Mr. Washington, this position requires commitment. 80-hour weeks, weekend emergencies, constant availability. How can a single father with a young child provide that? Marcus felt something shift inside him. The careful control he'd maintained all morning began to crack. You want to know about commitment? I've been committed to keeping my daughter alive and healthy for 2 years on almost nothing. I've worked warehouse nights and driven Uber weekends. I've troubleshot computer systems at 3 a.m. because I couldn't turn down a single client. I've done all that while making sure Hope had breakfast every morning, while braiding her hair before school, while sitting beside her bed when she had nightmares about her mother. His voice rose. I've sat in hospital rooms watching my wife die. I've held my daughter while she asked when Mommy was coming home, knowing I'd have to tell her Mommy was never coming home. I've buried the only woman I ever loved with $63 in my bank account. He stood up. You want to talk about commitment? I've been committed to surviving when everything in my life told me to give up. So don't sit there in your expensive suit and question my commitment. Don't you dare. Silence. Hope looked up from her coloring book. Daddy, are you okay? Marcus took a breath, then another. I'm fine, sweetheart. Keep coloring. He sat back down. Derek opened his mouth. The lights flickered. It started subtle, a stutter in the fluorescent panels. The kind of thing most people ignore. Marcus didn't ignore it. The wall-mounted display went dark. Then the laptops on the table. Then Patricia's tablet. What the... Derek grabbed his phone. His face went white. From outside the glass walls came sounds of chaos, shouting, running footsteps, someone screaming about encrypted files. Derek was already moving. This interview is over. He ran out. Patricia followed. Kevin hesitated, looking at Marcus with something like apology, then hurried after them. Marcus went to the glass wall and looked out. The trading floor was in chaos. Every monitor showed the same thing, error messages cascading faster than anyone could read. Employees stood helpless, watching their systems die. He knew what this was. He knew exactly what this was. 3 years ago, he'd spent 6 months developing a defense against this exact type of attack. A malware so sophisticated, it learned from every countermeasure, evolved with every attempt to stop it. He'd cracked its code, found its weakness, built a solution. Then they'd fired him. His supervisor, Harrison Cole, had stolen his work and taken the credit. When Marcus tried to fight back, they called him emotionally unstable and escorted him out of the building. 6 months later, that company was destroyed by the same attack. 3,000 people lost their jobs. The solution Marcus had built died with his career, and now it was happening again. Daddy. Hope was at his side. What's wrong with everyone? Marcus looked at his daughter, then at the chaos outside, then at the door. He had a choice. He could walk away, take Hope and leave. Let these people who had laughed at him, dismissed him, tried to throw him out, let them burn. Or he could save them. Hope, stay close to Daddy. We're going on an adventure. The command center was a war zone. Marcus carried Hope through corridors filled with panicking employees. No one stopped him. No one even noticed him. They were too busy watching their world collapse. He found them on the trading floor. Victoria Chen stood at the center, surrounded by her executive team. A sweating man, Jonathan Reeves, head of cybersecurity, was shaking his head. We've tried everything. Nothing works. This thing adapts. Every time we block it, it finds another way in. How long? Victoria's voice was steel. 8 minutes, maybe less. Then it hits core systems, client data, financial records, everything. Solutions. Now. We don't have any. This malware is unlike anything. I've seen it before. Every head turned. Marcus stood at the edge of the group, Hope in his arms. Jonathan laughed. Who the hell is this? Derek pushed forward. Security. This man is unauthorized. I know how to stop it. Marcus's voice cut through the noise. I built the defense against this exact attack 3 years ago. I can end this in 90 seconds. Victoria stepped toward him. You're the man from the lobby. Yes. The one Derek tried to throw out. Yes. And you're telling me you can save my company? Yes. Jonathan stepped between them. This is insane. For all we know, he's connected to the attack. He shows up the same day, claims he has the solution. That's not coincidence. That's conspiracy. Derek nodded vigorously. I agree. Call the FBI. Have him arrested. Or, Marcus said, you can let me sit at a terminal for 90 seconds. If I'm wrong, you've lost nothing. The attack continues. You call the FBI, I go to jail. He looked at Victoria. But if I'm right, you keep your company. Your employees keep their jobs. Your clients keep their money. He shifted Hope in his arms. Your choice. But you've got about 6 minutes to make it. Victoria looked at him. Really looked. Not at his clothes, not at his daughter, not at anything except his eyes. What do you need? Victoria, Jonathan started. What do you need, Mr. Washington? A terminal. 60 seconds of silence, and everyone to stay out of my way. She pointed to the nearest workstation. Do it. Marcus set Hope down gently. Baby daddy needs to focus, just like when I fix our computer at home. Can you be brave for me? I'm always brave, Daddy. Yes, you are. He sat at the terminal. The screen was filled with error messages cascading code digital death. His fingers found the keyboard. The room fell silent. 50 people watching. Waiting. 30 seconds. The code was familiar. An old enemy. He'd spent countless nights studying its patterns, understanding its logic, finding the single thread that would unravel everything. 45 seconds. He bypassed the corrupted firewall using a technique so old that modern systems didn't defend against it anymore. Everyone had forgotten it existed. That's what made it perfect. 60 seconds. He found the heart of the malware, the core replication module, and there, buried deep, was the flaw he'd discovered 3 years ago. A timing dependency that, if interrupted at exactly the right moment, would crash the entire system. 75 seconds. His finger hovered over the enter key. If you're wrong, Derek's voice. I'm not. 90 seconds. He pressed enter. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the cascade stopped. The error messages froze. The screens flickered and began coming back online. Jonathan Reeves stared at his monitor. That's not possible. It's done. Marcus stood. Your systems will recover in a few minutes. Run diagnostics, patch your firewalls, and fire whoever left that back door open." He picked up Hope. "We'll be going now." He made it 3 steps before Victoria's voice stopped him. "Mr. Washington?" He turned. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Around her, the chaos was settling. Employees were crying with relief. Jonathan was staring at the recovered systems like he'd witnessed a miracle. "The position you interviewed for," Victoria said. "Quantitative analyst, entry level, 60,000 a year. What about it? That job doesn't exist anymore." She walked toward him. "I'm creating a new one. Head of cybersecurity, 200,000 to start, full benefits, flexible hours so you can pick up your daughter from school." The room went silent again. Derek stepped forward. "Victoria, you can't be serious. We don't know anything about this man. He could be the only reason you still have a job, Derek." Victoria didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on Marcus. "He could be the only reason any of us still have jobs." She stopped in front of him, close enough that Hope could have reached out and touched her. "You walked into my building today with nothing. No connections, no expensive suit, no one to vouch for you, just your daughter and your dignity. And when we laughed at you, when we tried to throw you out, when we questioned everything about you, you still saved us." She held out her hand. "That's who I want building my company's future. So what do you say, Mr. Washington? Do we have a deal?" Marcus looked at her hand, then at his daughter. Then at the room full of people who had dismissed him, mocked him, tried to remove him. "I have conditions." "Name them." "I pick up Hope from school every day. I'm home for dinner every night. I don't miss her childhood for any job. Any job. Non-negotiable." Victoria nodded. "Done. And him." Marcus pointed at Derek. "He apologizes. Right now. In front of everyone." The room held its breath. Derek's face went red. "I will not." "Then I walk." Marcus turned toward the door. "Derek." Victoria's voice was ice. "Apologize." 5 seconds passed. 10. Derek looked at Victoria, at the watching employees, at the door Marcus was walking toward. "Wait." Marcus stopped. I apologize." The words came out like broken glass. "For my behavior in the lobby. It was unprofessional. It was cruel," Marcus said. "But I accept." He turned back to Victoria. "We have a deal." She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. "Welcome to Titan Financial, Mr. Washington." Hope tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy? Does this mean you got the job?" Marcus knelt down, pulling her into a hug. "Yeah, baby. Daddy got the job." Over his daughter's shoulder, he caught Victoria watching them. Something passed between them, too new to name, too real to ignore. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He glanced at it. 4 words. No signature. "This isn't over. H.C. Harrison Cole." Marcus's blood went cold. The man who had stolen his work, destroyed his career, and left him with nothing, he was still out there. And somehow he knew exactly what had happened today. Marcus deleted the message and held his daughter tighter. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The text message burned in Marcus's mind for 3 days. "This isn't over. H.C." He didn't tell Victoria. He didn't tell anyone. He deleted the message and tried to focus on the impossible task in front of him, becoming the head of cybersecurity for a company that had nearly died on his first day. His first morning as an official employee, Marcus arrived at 7:30 a.m. Hope was with him, backpack on her shoulders, teddy bear in her arms. The same receptionist who had smirked at him a week ago now stood up and smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Washington. Can I get you anything, coffee, water?" Marcus paused. "You remember what you said about me when I walked in here the first time?" The receptionist's smile faltered. I don't. Janitorial interviews are in the basement." He let the words hang. That's what you said. Her face went pale. Mr. Washington, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean— Yes, you did, but I'm not here for an apology. He looked at Hope, then back at the receptionist. I'm here because my daughter is watching. And I want her to see that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us. He extended his hand. I'm Marcus. What's your name? Jennifer. Nice to meet you, Jennifer. Let's start over. She shook his hand, eyes wet. Thank you. I don't deserve. Nobody deserves anything. We earn it, every day. He smiled. Now can you tell me where the daycare center is? I heard Titan has one. Jennifer nodded quickly. 3rd floor. It's wonderful. My sister's kids go there. Perfect. Marcus squeezed Hope's hand. Come on, baby. Let's go check out your new school. Hope looked up at him. Daddy, why were you nice to that lady? She was mean to us. Marcus knelt down to her level. Because being mean back doesn't fix anything. It just makes more meanness. You understand? I think so. Good. Now let's go see if they have crayons. The daycare was everything Jennifer promised. Bright colors, kind teachers, children laughing. Hope was hesitant at first, clinging to Marcus's leg, but within 10 minutes she was showing Mr. Buttons to a little girl named Sophia. Marcus watched through the window, his heart aching in ways he couldn't explain. This was what Denise had wanted, a good life for their daughter. Safety, happiness, friends. He wiped his eyes and headed for the elevator. Time to go to war. His office was on the 14th floor. Not a corner office, he'd refused that, but a space with glass walls where he could see his team and they could see him. Victoria had offered him something grander, but Marcus wanted accessibility, not intimidation. The problem was, he didn't have a team yet. Jonathan Reeves had resigned the day after the attack. The official story was, pursuing other opportunities. The real story was that Victoria had given him a choice: resign quietly or be fired publicly. He chose his pride. That left Marcus with a department of 12 people, most of whom resented him. He was an outsider, a nobody who had walked in off the street and taken their boss's job. Half of them expected him to fail. The other half were actively hoping for it. His first team meeting was a disaster. I want to know what went wrong. Marcus stood at the head of the conference table. The attack last week shouldn't have gotten past basic defenses. Someone tell me why it did. Silence. 12 faces stared at him. Some hostile, some indifferent, none willing to speak. I'm not looking to blame anyone. I'm looking to fix the problem, but I can't fix what I don't understand. A young woman in the back, her name tag read Keisha, raised her hand hesitantly. We told Jonathan, 3 months ago. The firewall protocols were outdated. He said it wasn't a priority. Why wasn't it a priority? Budget. He said we didn't have the resources. Marcus nodded. What else? Another voice. A man in his 40s named David. The backup systems. They were supposed to be air-gapped, completely isolated, but someone connected them to the main network for convenience. When the malware hit, it got everything. Who connected them? David hesitated. Jonathan. He said it was more efficient. Marcus let out a breath. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm requesting an immediate budget review. We're going to rebuild the entire security infrastructure from the ground up, and everyone in this room is going to help me do it. A man near the front, Marcus recognized him as someone who'd been glaring since he walked in, scoffed. And what makes you qualified to lead this? You've been here 3 days. You don't know our systems, our protocols, our culture. You're right, I don't. Marcus met his eyes. What's your name? Brian. Brian, you're right. I don't know your systems. I don't know your protocols. But I know something none of you know. I know exactly how that malware works because I spent 6 months of my life building the defense against it. I know its architecture, its patterns, its weaknesses. And I know that if we don't fix what's broken, it will happen again." He looked around the room. "I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm not here to prove I'm smarter or better. I'm here because this company almost died, and I know how to make sure it doesn't happen again. You can fight me on that, or you can help me. Your choice." Silence again, but different this time. Less hostile, more thoughtful. Keisha spoke up. "What do you need us to do?" "I need everything. Every report from the last 2 years. Every incident log. Every patch that was applied, and every one that wasn't. I need to understand where we've been, so I can figure out where we need to go." Brian crossed his arms. "That's thousands of documents." "Then we better get started." It took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of 16-hour days. 2 weeks of reading reports until his eyes blurred. 2 weeks of learning names, understanding relationships, mapping the invisible networks of loyalty and resentment that existed beneath the organizational chart. But Marcus also did something else. Something no previous head of cybersecurity had ever done. He ate lunch in the cafeteria. Every day he took his tray and sat at whatever table had an empty seat. He asked questions. Not about work, about families, hobbies, weekend plans. He learned that Brian's daughter was applying to colleges, that Keisha was training for a marathon, that David had been at Titan for 15 years and had watched 6 different bosses come and go. "You're different," David told him one Thursday. "I don't know if that's good or bad yet, but you're different." "How so?" "Jonathan never learned anyone's name. The guy before him was worse. He called everyone by their badge numbers. But you actually seem to care." "I do care." "Why?" Marcus thought about it. "Because 2 years ago I was invisible. I applied for jobs, sent out resumes, showed up for interviews, and people looked right through me. Like I didn't exist. Like I didn't matter." He paused. "I know what that feels like. I don't want anyone on my team to feel that way." David was quiet for a moment. "The attack. The day you showed up. Jonathan was convinced you were part of it. He told everyone you must have planted the malware so you could swoop in and save the day. What do you think?" "I think if you'd planted it, you would have asked for a lot more than $200,000. Marcus laughed. It felt strange. He hadn't laughed much in 2 years. "Fair point. Also," David added, "I looked up the attack signature, cross-referenced it with incidents from other companies. Goldman Sachs lost $250 million 3 years ago to the same malware. Same exact code." Marcus stopped laughing. "You did that research yourself." "I was curious, and you know what I found? A name. Someone who worked at Goldman during that time. Someone who specialized in defensive algorithms." David looked at him. "Marcus Washington. And he was fired. 3 weeks after his wife died. His supervisor took credit for all his work and pushed him out." David leaned closer. That supervisor's name was Harrison Cole. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. "How do you know that?" "LinkedIn, Google, basic research." David shrugged. "I'm in cybersecurity. Finding information is what I do." Marcus's hands had gone cold. "Does anyone else know?" "Not yet, but I have a question." "Ask." Harrison Cole. Is he going to be a problem? Marcus thought about the text message. The one he'd deleted. The one that had kept him awake every night since. "Yeah," he said quietly. "He's going to be a problem." 2 days later, Victoria called him to her office. He'd seen her several times since his first day, but always in passing. Brief nods in hallways. Quick conversations about budgets and protocols. Professional, distant, appropriate. But something in her voice on the phone was different. "Close the door, Marcus." He did. She was standing by the window looking out at the city. The same view she must have seen 1,000 times, but she stared at it like she was searching for something. "How are you settling in?" "Fine. The team is starting to come together." "I've heard, Brian actually said something positive about you yesterday. That's practically a miracle. Marcus smiled slightly. He's a good guy, just protective of his territory. They all are. Titan is like a family. Dysfunctional, competitive, sometimes cruel, but still a family. She turned to face him. Which is why I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Harrison Cole. Marcus felt his stomach drop. My legal team flagged something. They were reviewing the attack liability issues insurance claims standard procedure, and they found a connection. The malware that hit us is identical to the one that destroyed Goldman Sachs 3 years ago. The one that someone at Goldman supposedly developed a defense against. A defense that was never implemented. She walked closer. That someone was you, wasn't it? Yes. And Harrison Cole stole your work, got you fired, took everything from you. Yes. And now, Victoria's eyes bore into his. Is he going to come after you? Come after us? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He thought about lying, about protecting her from the truth, about handling this himself, but she deserved honesty. He already has. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened a screenshot he'd saved. I deleted the original, but I kept this. It came through the day you hired me. Victoria read the message. Her expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened. This isn't over, HC. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to regret hiring me. Because I thought I could handle it. Because... He stopped. Because I'm tired of my past destroying my future. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something Marcus didn't expect. She laughed. You think I would regret hiring you because some bitter man from your past sent a threatening text? She shook her head. Marcus, I've been CEO for 3 years. I've received death threats from competitors, lawsuits from people I've never met, marriage proposals from strangers who think my money makes me attractive. One anonymous text doesn't scare me. It should. Harrison isn't just bitter, he's dangerous. And he's smart. So are you. Not smart enough. He destroyed me once already. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume, something subtle, expensive, warm. He didn't destroy you. He knocked you down. There's a difference. Her voice softened. If he'd destroyed you, you wouldn't be standing here. You wouldn't have walked into my lobby with your daughter and refused to leave. You wouldn't have saved my company in 90 seconds while everyone else stood around panicking. She reached out and touched his arm. Brief, light, but it sent electricity through his skin. You're not the same man he fired 3 years ago. And whatever he's planning, we'll face it together. Together. This is my company, Marcus. My father built it from nothing. He came to this country with $40 and a dream, and he created something that employs 3,000 people. I'm not going to let some vindictive coward burn it down. She pulled her hand back. So yes, together. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had spent so long fighting alone, surviving alone. The idea of someone standing beside him felt foreign, uncomfortable, and deeply terrifyingly hopeful. Okay, he said finally. Together. Good. Now tell me everything you know about Harrison Cole. They talked for 2 hours. Marcus told her things he'd never told anyone. The humiliation of being escorted out by security. The months of applications that went nowhere because Harrison had blacklisted him. The nights he'd spent in his car because he couldn't afford both rent and food. The moment he'd considered giving up hope for adoption because he thought she deserved better than a father who couldn't provide for her. Victoria listened without interrupting, without judgment, without pity. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. He destroyed your career and stole your work. He left you with nothing while he climbed the ladder, and now he's threatening you again. She stood up, walked to her desk, and pressed an intercom button. Sarah, get me the head of legal, and contact our private security firm. I want a meeting within the hour." She turned back to Marcus. "Harrison Cole made a mistake. He thought he was going after you, a single father with nothing left to lose." Her eyes were steel. "He didn't realize he was going after Titan Financial, going after me, and I don't lose." "Victoria. No, listen to me." She walked around the desk until she was standing in front of him again. "You protected my company when you owed us nothing. Now I'm going to protect you, not because it's good business, because it's right." Marcus's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because when I was 23, someone tried to destroy my father's company. A former partner who felt cheated. He spread lies, filed lawsuits, turned investors against us. Everyone told my father to settle, to pay him off, to make it go away." She paused. "My father refused. He said some things are worth fighting for even if the fight costs you everything. He won. The partner went to prison, and Titan survived." She looked at Marcus with an intensity that made his chest ache. "Some things are worth fighting for. You're worth fighting for." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from the daycare. "Mr. Washington, please come to the 3rd floor. Hope is asking for you." His heart seized. "I have to go." "Go. We'll continue this tomorrow." He was at the door when she called his name. "Marcus?" He turned. "Bring Hope to my office sometime. I'd like to see her again." "I will." He took the stairs instead of the elevator. It was faster. His mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Hope hurt. Hope sick. Hope crying for her mother again, the way she did sometimes suddenly, and without warning. He burst through the daycare door, breathing hard. Hope was sitting at a small table, perfectly fine, drawing on a large sheet of paper. A teacher approached him, smiling apologetically. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Washington. She's not hurt or anything. She said she had something important to show you. She was very insistent." Marcus let out a breath. "It's okay. I understand." He walked over to his daughter and knelt beside her. "Hey, baby, what's so important?" Hope held up her drawing. It showed 3 figures this time, a tall one, a small one, and a third one with long dark hair. "That's you." She pointed to the tall figure. "That's me." The small one. "And that's the nice lady, Miss Victoria." Marcus's heart did something complicated. "Why did you draw her?" "Because she made you smile, Daddy. You don't smile very much anymore, but when you talk about her, you smile." Hope looked at him with her mother's eyes. "I like it when you smile." Marcus pulled her into a hug, hiding his face so she wouldn't see the tears. "I like it when I smile too, baby." That night, after Hope was asleep, Marcus sat alone in his apartment. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms in a building that had seen better decades. The heat worked sometimes. The neighbors were loud, but it was theirs. He held Hope's drawing in his hands, studying the 3 figures. A family. That's what it looked like. That's what Hope had seen. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message preview. His finger hovered over the screen. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to pretend the threat didn't exist, but pretending hadn't saved him last time. He opened the message. A photo. Marcus in the Titan lobby holding Hope's hand. Taken from outside the building through the glass walls. A telephoto lens. Below the photo, 4 words. "Pretty daughter, stay smart." Marcus's blood turned to ice. Harrison wasn't just threatening him anymore. He was threatening Hope. Marcus stood up slowly. His hands were shaking. His vision had narrowed to a single point. He walked to his closet and pulled out a box he hadn't opened in 3 years. Inside was a laptop. Old. Battered. But containing everything he'd saved from his time at Goldman Sachs. Every algorithm he'd written. Every pattern he'd identified. Every weakness he'd found. And something else. Something he'd discovered by accident. Something he'd never told anyone. Evidence that Harrison Cole hadn't just stolen Marcus's work. He'd created the malware in the first place. Harrison wasn't just a thief. He was the architect of attacks that had destroyed 3 companies, cost thousands of jobs, stolen millions of dollars. And Marcus had the proof. He'd kept it hidden because he'd been afraid. Because he'd had nothing left. Because he'd thought that surviving was enough. But surviving wasn't enough anymore. Harrison had threatened Hope, and that changed everything. Marcus opened the laptop and began to work. By morning, he would have a plan. By the end of the week, Harrison Cole would understand exactly who he was dealing with. Not a victim, not a survivor, a father with nothing left to lose. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table, the old laptop glowing in the darkness, and he worked. Hour after hour, he pieced together the evidence he'd collected 3 years ago. The code fragments. The timestamps. The digital fingerprints that proved Harrison Cole wasn't just a thief, he was the creator of the malware that had destroyed companies across 3 continents. By 4 a.m., he had everything organized. A timeline of attacks. Financial records showing payments to offshore accounts. Email exchanges Harrison had thought were deleted, but had been cached on backup servers Marcus had accessed before his termination. It was enough to send Harrison to prison for 20 years. But it wasn't enough to keep Hope safe. Harrison was smart. Careful. If Marcus went to the authorities now, Harrison would disappear. The evidence would be dismissed as fabricated by a disgruntled former employee. And Hope would spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. No. Marcus needed more than evidence. He needed Harrison to destroy himself. At 6 a.m., Hope padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, why are you awake?" Marcus closed the laptop and pulled her into his arms. "Just working on something, baby. Did you sleep okay?" "I had a dream about Mommy." His heart clenched. "Yeah. What happened in the dream?" "She was singing. The song she used to sing at bedtime. The one about the moon." Marcus remembered. Denise had a beautiful voice. She'd sung to Hope every night, even when the chemotherapy had made her so weak she could barely whisper. "That sounds like a nice dream." It was. Hope looked at him with her mother's eyes. "Daddy, are you scared of something?" Children saw everything. They couldn't articulate it, couldn't explain it, but they felt the truth in ways adults had forgotten. "A little bit," Marcus admitted. "Of what?" "There's a bad man. Someone who wants to hurt Daddy, and I'm trying to figure out how to stop him." Hope was quiet for a moment. Then she wrapped her small arms around his neck. "You'll figure it out, Daddy. You always do." Marcus held her tighter, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. "Thank you, baby." "Daddy." "Yeah. Can we have pancakes?" Despite everything, Marcus laughed. "Yeah, we can have pancakes." He made breakfast with his daughter, pretending everything was normal. Pretending his world wasn't about to explode. Pretending he wasn't planning something that could either save them or destroy them completely. At 8:30, he dropped Hope at daycare and went straight to Victoria's office. She was already at her desk, coffee in hand, reviewing documents. She looked up when he entered, and something in his expression made her set down her cup immediately. "What happened?" Marcus closed the door. "He threatened Hope." Victoria stood. "What?" He showed her the photo. The telephoto shot of him and Hope in the lobby. The message beneath it. "Pretty daughter, stay smart." Victoria's face went pale, then red with anger. "That son of a bitch?" "There's more." Marcus sat down across from her. "I have evidence that Harrison didn't just steal my work. He created the malware. All of it. The attack on Goldman, the attack on Titan, attacks on companies in Europe and Asia. He's been selling his services to the highest bidder for years. Corporate espionage, market manipulation, straight-up extortion. He's made millions. How do you have this?" "I found it 3 years ago, right before they fired me. I was trying to trace the malware's origin, and the trail led back to an internal source. Someone with high-level access and the skills to cover their tracks. Marcus paused. Someone like Harrison. Why didn't you go to the authorities? Because I had nothing. No job, no credibility, no resources. Harrison had already painted me as unstable. If I'd accused him of being a cybercriminal, they would have laughed me out of the room. Or worse, he would have framed me for it. Victoria sat back down slowly. So, he's been operating for 3 years, getting richer, more powerful, and now he's targeting you again because you're the only one who knows the truth. Yes. What do you want to do? Marcus met her eyes. I want to set a trap. He explained his plan. It was risky, dangerous. There were a dozen ways it could go wrong. But if it worked, Harrison Cole would be finished. You're asking me to put Titan at risk, Victoria said when he finished. I'm asking you to trust me. Marcus, this isn't about trust. If your plan fails, Harrison could destroy us. The attack last month was just a warning. If he hits us again with full force, he'll hit you anyway, whether we do this or not. Harrison doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. You humiliated him when you hired me. You chose me over the narrative he'd built. That makes you his enemy now. Victoria was silent for a long moment. The board will never approve this. Then don't tell them. If this goes wrong, I'll lose everything. My company, my reputation, everything my father built. I know. And you're asking me to do it anyway. I'm asking you to fight, the same way your father fought when everyone told him to give up. Marcus leaned forward. Victoria, I've spent 3 years running from this man. Hiding. Surviving. I'm done. He threatened my daughter. He crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. And I'm going to stop him with or without your help. But with you, we have a chance to end this for good. Victoria looked at him. Really looked. Past the surface, past the professional facade into something deeper. You're not just angry, you're scared. Terrified. Of Harrison. Of failing. Of losing hope. Of being the man Harrison said I was weak, unstable, worthless. His voice cracked slightly. I've been fighting that voice in my head for 3 years. Every day it tells me I'm not good enough, that I don't deserve happiness, that hope would be better off without me. Marcus. I know it's not true, I know it, but knowing and believing are different things. He took a breath. This isn't just about stopping Harrison. It's about proving to myself that I'm not the man he tried to make me. Victoria stood and walked around the desk. She stopped in front of him close enough to touch. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I don't feel brave. That's what makes you brave. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. She reached out and took his hand. I'm in. Whatever you need. Whatever it takes. Marcus looked at their hands together. Her skin was warm against his. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This could destroy us both. I know. Then let's get to work. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Marcus would create a vulnerability in Titan's security system. A small one carefully designed invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. Then, he would leak information suggesting that Titan was about to announce a major partnership with a European financial consortium information that would be worth millions to anyone who could access it before the public announcement. Harrison would see the vulnerability. He would take the bait. He would launch his attack, expecting an easy score. But this time, Marcus would be waiting. The fake vulnerability was actually a honeypot, a trap designed to capture every piece of data that passed through it. Every command Harrison sent, every file he accessed, every digital footprint he left would be recorded and traced back to its source. And Marcus had added one more element. A piece of code buried deep in the honeypot that would, when triggered, activate a hidden program on Harrison's own computer. A program that would copy everything, emails, files, financial records, evidence of every crime Harrison had ever committed, and send it to a secure server controlled by Marcus. It was illegal. Spectacularly, unambiguously illegal. If anyone found out what Marcus had done, he would go to prison. But Harrison had threatened Hope, and there was nothing Marcus wouldn't do to protect his daughter. The setup took 4 days. 4 days of working 20-hour shifts, sleeping on the couch in his office, seeing Hope only for brief moments at breakfast and dinner. 4 days of lying to his team about what he was building, of evading questions from Victoria's board, of pretending everything was normal while he prepared the most dangerous gamble of his life. David noticed something was wrong. "You look like hell," he said on day 3, dropping into the chair across from Marcus's desk. "When's the last time you slept?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running on caffeine and adrenaline, and eventually that catches up to you." David leaned forward. "What's going on, Marcus? And don't tell me nothing. I've been doing this too long to believe nothing." Marcus looked at him. David had been loyal from the beginning, skeptical but fair, a good man in a company full of people who'd forgotten what that meant. "Close the door." David did. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. If it does, I go to prison. Understand?" "Jesus, yeah, I understand." Marcus told him. Not everything, but enough. Harrison Cole. The threat to Hope. The trap. When he finished, David was silent for a long time. "You're insane," he finally said. "Probably. This could blow up in your face in 100 different ways. I know. If Harrison figures out what you're doing, he'll destroy you. He'll destroy Victoria. He'll burn Titan to the ground out of spite." "I know." David shook his head. "Then why are you doing it?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed David the lock screen. A photo of Hope laughing at the camera, her front teeth missing. "Because of her." David looked at the photo. Something shifted in his expression. "I have 3 kids," he said quietly. 2 boys and a girl. My daughter's about Hope's age." He paused. "If someone threatened her, I don't know what I'd do, but I know it would be something like this." "So you understand?" "Yeah, I understand." David stood up. "What do you need?" "Help monitoring the honeypot. I can't watch it 24/7. And when Harrison takes the bait, I need someone I trust to verify the data capture." "Done." "David, if this goes wrong, I know, prison, career destruction, all of it." David met his eyes. "I'm in anyway." "Why?" "Because you're the first boss I've had in 15 years who actually gives a damn about people. Because you eat lunch in the cafeteria like a human being. Because you remembered my daughter's name the second time we talked." He shrugged. "And because Harrison Cole sounds like exactly the kind of asshole I've spent my whole career wanting to take down." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This could destroy us both." Marcus almost smiled. Victoria said the same thing. "Smart woman." "Yeah, she is." On day 5, Marcus leaked the fake information. He used a series of anonymous accounts on financial forums, carefully crafted to look like insider tips from a disgruntled Titan employee. He mentioned the European partnership. He mentioned the timeline. He mentioned that security had been compromised recently and might still have weaknesses. Then he waited. The first probe came at 3:47 a.m. Marcus was in his office, monitors arrayed in front of him, David at a workstation nearby. They watched in real time as someone carefully, methodically began testing Titan's defenses. "That's him," Marcus breathed. "How do you know?" "The pattern. The way he probes for weaknesses. It's exactly the same as the Goldman attack. Exactly the same as last month." Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard. "He's found the vulnerability. He's going to test it." A pause. Then a cascade of activity on the monitors. "He's in." David leaned forward. "The honeypot's capturing everything. Every keystroke. Every command." "Good. Let him run. Let him think he's winning." For the next 2 hours they watched Harrison Cole rob what he thought was Titan's most sensitive data. He was careful, professional. covering his tracks as he went. But every move he made was being recorded, cataloged, traced back to its source. And then, Marcus triggered the hidden program. It was over in seconds. A small executable buried in a file Harrison had downloaded that activated when opened. It found his system copied everything and transmitted the data to Marcus's secure server before Harrison even knew it existed. "Got it," Marcus whispered. "Everything. Emails, financial records, contracts. Evidence of attacks on 17 different companies over 5 years." He looked at David. "We have him." David let out a breath. "Holy shit. It actually worked." "Not yet. We need to verify the data. Make sure it's admissible. Then we need to decide how to release it." "The FBI." "Eventually. But first." Marcus pulled up an email draft he'd been composing for 3 days. "First, I want to give Harrison a chance to do the right thing." "Are you kidding? After everything he's done, after he threatened your daughter?" "I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for me." Marcus looked at David. "If I destroy him without giving him a choice, I'm no better than he is. I'm just another predator taking what I want because I can." "That's noble, but also possibly stupid." "Probably." Marcus hit send. "Guess we'll find out." The email was simple. "Harrison, I know what you are. I have proof. Every attack. Every payment. Every crime. You have 24 hours to turn yourself in to the FBI. If you don't, I release everything. This is your only chance. Marcus." The response came 12 minutes later. "You're bluffing." Marcus replied, "Check your download history from tonight. Then tell me I'm bluffing." Silence for an hour. Then his phone rang. He answered on the second ring. "Marcus?" Harrison's voice was smooth, controlled. The voice of a man who had never faced real consequences for anything. "It's been a long time. Not long enough. You've been busy. Head of cybersecurity at Titan. Quite a step up from warehouse night shifts. You've been watching me. I keep an eye on my investments. And you were always an investment, Marcus. A very disappointing one, but still." Harrison paused. "You can't actually believe that email accomplished anything." "I believe I have evidence that will destroy you. Evidence obtained illegally, through methods that would put you in prison right next to me. Do you really think anyone will care about my crimes when they learn how you discovered them?" Marcus had prepared for this. "I didn't obtain anything illegally. I simply monitored my own company's security systems and captured data from an intrusion. Everything you sent, everything you accessed, you gave it to us the moment you breached our network. The hidden program was just a bonus." Silence on the other end. "You're lying. Try me." More silence. When Harrison spoke again, some of the smoothness was gone. "What do you want?" "I want you to turn yourself in. Confess to everything. Accept the consequences." Harrison laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I release everything. Not just to the FBI, to the media. Every newspaper, every news channel, every financial blog. Your face will be everywhere. Your name will become synonymous with corporate terrorism. You'll never work again. You'll never have a moment's peace." "You wouldn't dare." "You threatened my daughter, Harrison. You sent me a photograph of my little girl and told me to stay smart. You crossed a line that can never be uncrossed." Marcus's voice went cold. "There is nothing I wouldn't dare." The line was quiet for so long, Marcus thought Harrison had hung up. Then, "You have no idea what you've started. I have 24 hours to find out. You have until I decide you're not worth the trouble. And Marcus? That threshold is very, very low right now." The call ended. Marcus stared at his phone, heart pounding. David was watching him. Well, he's scared. He's trying not to show it, but he's scared. That's good, right? Maybe. Or maybe it means he's about to do something desperate. Marcus stood up. "I need to get hope. Now." He ran. through the hallways, down the stairs, across the building, to the daycare on the third floor. He burst through the door, startling the teachers, his eyes scanning desperately for his daughter. She was there, sitting at a small table drawing with crayons, completely oblivious to the war being fought in her name. Hope. She looked up and smiled. Daddy? Look, I drew a picture of us at the beach. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides and scooped her into his arms. Daddy, what's wrong? Nothing, baby. Nothing's wrong. He held her tight, feeling her heartbeat, smelling her hair, memorizing every detail. I just wanted to see you. But I was drawing. I know, I'm sorry. You can finish later. He looked at the teachers who were watching with confused concern. We need to leave early today. He carried Hope out of the daycare down to Victoria's office and walked in without knocking. Victoria looked up, startled. Marcus, what? I made contact with Harrison. He knows we have the evidence. He's either going to surrender or he's going to attack. Victoria stood immediately. What do you need? Security for Hope. Armed guards. Someone who can protect her if Harrison decides to escalate. Done. Victoria was already reaching for her phone. I'll have my private security team here in 20 minutes. And I need you to activate the lockdown protocols. Full building security. No one in or out without verification. Victoria hesitated. That will shut down operations. The board. The board can deal with it. Harrison is desperate, which makes him dangerous. If he can't get to me directly, he might try to hurt the company, or worse. She nodded, making the call. Marcus looked at Hope, still in his arms. Daddy, why are we in the nice lady's office? Because we need to stay here for a while, baby. It's safer. Safer from what? He didn't know how to answer. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that monsters are real, that there are people in the world who would hurt a child just to hurt her father? There's a bad person. Hope, someone who wants to scare us, but Daddy's not going to let him. Hope looked at him with her mother's eyes. You promise? I promise. She put her head on his shoulder and held him tight. Across the room, Victoria finished her call. Security's on the way. Lockdown protocols activated. She walked toward them. What now? Marcus looked at her, at this woman who had risked everything to help him, who had believed in him when she had no reason to, who had become somehow the closest thing to a partner he'd had since Denise. Now we wait, he said, and we pray that Harrison is smart enough to surrender. And if he's not? Marcus looked at his daughter, peaceful in his arms. Then we go to war. The first 12 hours passed in silence. Marcus paced Victoria's office while Hope slept on the leather couch, wrapped in a blanket one of the assistants had brought. Security guards stood at every entrance. The building was locked down. And somewhere out there, Harrison Cole was making his move. You should sleep, Victoria said from her desk. I can't. You've been awake for almost 40 hours. I know. Marcus. She stood and walked toward him. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. Lie down. Close your eyes. Even 30 minutes will help. What if something happens while I'll wake you, I promise. She touched his arm. Please. He looked at Hope, peaceful on the couch. At Victoria, exhausted but still standing. At the city lights beyond the window, millions of people going about their lives, unaware of the war being fought in this building. Okay, 30 minutes. He sat in the chair next to Hope, leaned his head back and closed his eyes. He was asleep in seconds. The dream came fast. Denise was there, standing in their old apartment, the one they'd shared before everything fell apart. She was healthy again, her hair long and dark, her smile the same one that had made him fall in love with her 15 years ago. You're doing good, baby, she said. I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, you do. You're protecting our daughter. You're fighting for your future. You're being the man I always knew you were. I'm scared. I know. But fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. She reached out and touched his face. Her hand was warm, real. "You're going to win this, Marcus. And when you do, I need you to promise me something." "Anything, Bo. Don't let the fight define you. Don't become so focused on the enemy that you forget why you're fighting." She smiled. "Hope needs a father who knows how to live. Not just survive. Live. I miss you." "I know, baby. I miss you too. But I'm not gone. I'm in Hope's eyes, in her laugh, in every part of her that came from me." She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. "Now wake up. It's time." Marcus jerked awake. Victoria was shaking his shoulder. Marcus, wake up." "What? What is it?" "David just called. Something's happening." He was on his feet instantly, checking Hope still asleep before following Victoria to her desk. She had David on speakerphone. "Talk to me." "The honeypot just lit up. Someone's probing it again, but it's different this time. More aggressive. They're not being careful anymore." "Harrison, I can't confirm, but the signature matches. And there's something else." David's voice was tight. "They're not trying to steal data. They're trying to plant something." Marcus's blood went cold. "A payload. He's trying to deploy another attack." "That's what it looks like. But this one's different. It's not encryption malware. It's..." David paused. "I've never seen anything like this." "Describe it." "It's designed to corrupt, not just files, everything. Operating systems, backup servers, even the firmware on individual devices. If this thing activates, it won't just take down Titan. It'll destroy every piece of hardware connected to our network. Permanently." Victoria grabbed Marcus's arm. "Can you stop it?" Marcus was already moving. "I need to get to the server room, now." "I'm coming with you." "No, stay with Hope. If something happens to me..." "Nothing's going to happen to you." "Victoria." He stopped, turned, took her hands in his. "If something happens to me, Hope needs someone. Someone who will protect her. Someone who will love her." His voice cracked. "Promise me." Victoria's eyes were wet. "Marcus, promise me." She nodded, unable to speak. He pulled her into a hug. Brief, fierce, full of everything he couldn't say. Then he ran. The server room was in the basement 4 floors down, accessible only by a secured elevator. Marcus's clearance got him through the first 3 checkpoints. The 4th required Victoria's override, which she provided remotely while he waited, heart-pounding. The doors opened. The room was cold, filled with the hum of machinery and the blink of countless lights. Rows of servers stretched into the darkness, each one containing pieces of Titan's digital soul. David was already there, hunched over a terminal. "I've isolated the infected nodes, but the payload's spreading faster than I can contain it. We've got maybe 5 minutes before it reaches critical systems." Marcus sat down at the adjacent terminal. "Show me." The code filled his screen. David was right, it was unlike anything he'd seen before. Elegant. Vicious. Designed not just to destroy, but to ensure nothing could ever be rebuilt. Harrison's masterpiece. "He's been planning this for years," Marcus breathed. "This isn't revenge. This is annihilation." "Can you stop it?" Marcus studied the code, his mind racing through possibilities. Every defense he tried, the payload adapted. Every barrier he built, it found a way around. It was learning from him, evolving in real time. And then he saw it. A weakness. So small, so carefully hidden, that anyone else would have missed it. But Marcus had spent 3 years thinking about Harrison's code, dreaming about it. He knew its patterns, like he knew his own heartbeat. There. He pointed at the screen. That dependency loop. It's the same one from the original malware. He couldn't resist using his own signature. What does that mean? It means I know exactly where to hit him. Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard. The payload needs to communicate with an external server to receive updates. If I can trace that connection back to its source. You can find Harrison. Better. I can turn his weapon against him. Marcus pulled up a new window. The payload is designed to destroy everything it touches. What if I redirected it, sent it back through the connection it came from? David's eyes went wide. You'd destroy his system instead of ours. And capture his location in the process. IP address, physical coordinates, everything we need to send the FBI directly to his door. That's insane. It's the only way. Marcus, if you're wrong, if the redirect doesn't work, the payload will complete its mission. Titan will be gone. Thousands of jobs. Victoria's family legacy. Everything. I know. And you're still going to do it. Marcus thought about Hope sleeping in Victoria's office, about Denise's voice in his dream, about the man he'd been 3 years ago, broken, defeated, ready to give up. He wasn't that man anymore. Yeah, he said. I'm still going to do it. He initiated the redirect. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The payload continued its march through Titan's systems, corrupting everything it touched. Marcus watched the progress bar climb 47%, 52%, 58%. Come on, he whispered. Come on. And then the screen flickered. The payload hesitated, stuttered, began to reverse. It's working, David breathed. Holy shit, it's actually working. The progress bar started moving the other way. 54%, 49%, 43%. The payload was retreating, following the connection back to its source, carrying Marcus's redirect code with it. A new window popped up on the screen. Coordinates, an IP address, a physical location. Got him. Marcus grabbed his phone. Victoria, call the FBI. I have Harrison's location. Already done. They're mobilizing now. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less. Marcus looked at the coordinates. Harrison was in New Jersey, less than 30 miles away. Close enough to watch Titan burn. Close enough to savor his victory. Close enough to reach. I'm not waiting 20 minutes. Marcus, no. Let the FBI handle it. He threatened my daughter Victoria. He tried to destroy everything we built. I need to see his face when it ends. This isn't your job. You've done enough. It's not about the job. Marcus stood up. It's about closure. He was at the elevator before she could respond. The drive took 18 minutes. Marcus pushed his old Honda to its limits, weaving through traffic, running red lights, his heart pounding harder with every mile. He knew this was reckless. He knew the smart thing was to wait for the FBI. But Harrison had made this personal, and Marcus needed to finish it himself. The coordinates led to a warehouse in an industrial district. Empty. Abandoned. The kind of place where crimes happened and no one asked questions. Marcus parked a block away and approached on foot. The front door was unlocked. Inside the warehouse was dark, except for a single light in the far corner. A figure sat at a desk surrounded by computer monitors, all of them displaying error messages and corrupted files. Harrison Cole. He looked up as Marcus approached. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. The smooth confidence from their phone call was gone, replaced by something raw, desperate. You came. I came. To gloat. To end this. Harrison laughed. It was a hollow sound. You think you've won? You think destroying my systems means anything? I have backups, resources, people who owe me favors. Your backups are compromised. Your resources are frozen. And the people who owe you favors are about to find out exactly who you are. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Harrison the screen. The FBI will be here in 8 minutes. Every news outlet in the country will have your name, your face, and evidence of every crime you've committed within the hour. Harrison's face changed. The desperation deepened. I made you, he said. Everything you are. Everything you accomplished at Goldman, it was because of me. I gave you opportunities, mentored you, and you repaid me by being weak. By choosing your dying wife over your career. I chose love over ambition. That's not weakness. That's humanity. Humanity is weakness. Sentiment is weakness. The only thing that matters is power, having it, keeping it, using it. Harrison stood up. I had everything: money, influence, fear, and you took it all away because you couldn't let go of a grudge. This isn't about a grudge. This is about justice. Justice. Harrison spat the word. Justice is a fairy tale told to children. The real world rewards the strong and punishes the weak. I understand that. You never did. Maybe not. Marcus stepped closer. But I understand something you don't. What's that? I understand that strength isn't about what you take. It's about what you protect. He thought about Hope, about Victoria, about everyone who had stood by him when they had no reason to. I have people who believe in me, people who would fight for me, people who love me. What do you have, Harrison? Who's going to fight for you? Silence. Harrison's face crumpled. For one brief moment, Marcus saw past the mask, past the arrogance, past the cruelty to the emptiness beneath. A man who had everything and nothing at the same time. Then the moment passed, and Harrison's expression hardened. You think this is over? He reached for something on the desk. I still have. Marcus moved faster than he'd ever moved in his life. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, grabbed Harrison's wrist and slammed it against the desk. A gun clattered to the floor. It's over, Harrison. It was over the moment you threatened my daughter. He pinned Harrison against the desk, holding him there, with a strength born of 2 years of warehouse work, 2 years of fighting to survive. Harrison struggled, but he was soft, weak. A man who had spent his life behind computers, manipulating others to do his dirty work. Let me go. No. The FBI. The FBI will be here in 6 minutes, and you're going to stay right here until they arrive. You can't do this. I already am. Harrison's struggling weakened. His breathing became ragged, and then finally he stopped fighting. Why? The word was small, broken. Why did you survive? I destroyed your career, your reputation, your life. You should have been finished. Why did you survive? Marcus leaned close. Because I had something worth surviving for. He thought about Hope's face, her laugh, the way she looked at him like he was a superhero even when he felt like nothing. My daughter gave me a reason to keep going, even on the worst days, even when I wanted to give up. She needed me, so I kept fighting. He let out a breath. You never had that, did you? Nothing to fight for except yourself. Harrison didn't answer. He didn't need to. The emptiness in his eyes said everything. Sirens in the distance. Marcus held Harrison in place as the sound grew closer. Minutes passed. The door burst open. FBI agents flooded the warehouse, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus raised his hands and stepped back. He's all yours. They took Harrison away in handcuffs, his face blank, his empire crumbling around him. Agents secured the computers, bagged the evidence, documented the scene. A woman in a dark suit approached Marcus. You're Marcus Washington? Yes. I'm Special Agent Torres. I have a lot of questions for you. I'll answer all of them, but first I need to call my daughter. Torres hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. Marcus stepped outside, pulled out his phone and dialed Victoria's number. She answered on the first ring. Marcus, are you okay? I'm okay, it's over. They got him. They got him. His voice cracked. Is Hope? She's right here. She's been asking about you all night. Can I talk to her? A pause. Then Hope's voice, sleepy and small. Daddy. Hey baby, I'm sorry I've been gone so long. Where are you? I'm coming home, right now. Did you stop the bad man? Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the tears finally come. Yeah, baby. Daddy stopped the bad man. I knew you would. You always protect us. Always. That's my job. Daddy. Yeah, I love you. 3 words. Simple. Pure. Worth more than all the money, all the power, all the success in the world. I love you too, baby. So much. He hung up and stood there for a moment, letting the cool air wash over him. The sirens had stopped. The chaos had settled. And somewhere in the distance, the sun was starting to rise. Marcus Washington had survived. But more than that, he had won. The FBI interview took 4 hours. Marcus told them everything. The evidence he'd gathered at Goldman, the attacks Harrison had orchestrated, the trap he'd set at Titan. He left nothing out, knowing that complete honesty was the only way forward. Agent Torres was thorough professional and surprisingly sympathetic. You understand that some of your methods were questionable, she said at the end. I understand. The redirect you used, the way you captured Harrison's data, in other circumstances, that could be considered illegal. I know. Torres studied him for a long moment. You also saved a company, protected thousands of jobs, and brought down one of the most prolific cyber criminals we've ever tracked. A man we've been trying to catch for 5 years. What does that mean? It means I'm recommending that no charges be filed against you. You acted in defense of your company, your colleagues, and your family. The methods may have been aggressive, but the outcome speaks for itself. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You'll need to testify at Harrison's trial. It could take months, years even. I'll testify, as many times as you need. Torres stood and extended her hand. You're a good man, Mr. Washington. Your daughter is lucky to have you. Marcus shook her hand. I'm the lucky one. He left the FBI field office at 11:47 a.m. Victoria was waiting outside, Hope asleep in her arms. Hey. Hey. She smiled at him, exhausted and beautiful. Need a ride? More than you know. They drove in silence for a while. Hope stirred occasionally, murmuring in her sleep, then settling back down. Marcus watched the city pass by, the same streets he'd driven as an Uber driver, the same buildings he'd walked past when he had nothing, the same world that looked completely different now. What happens next? Victoria asked. Harrison goes to trial. I testify. Then, I don't know. The board wants to meet with you. Officially thank you for saving the company. That sounds terrifying. Victoria laughed. It should be. They're terrifying people. She glanced at him. But I'll be there. Every step of the way. Why? Why what? Why are you doing all this? The job. The protection standing by me through everything. You barely knew me when this started. Victoria was quiet for a moment. When my father was building Titan, everyone told him he'd fail. He was an immigrant, no connections, no money, no pedigree. But he believed in himself when no one else did. He fought when everyone else said to give up. She looked at Marcus. You remind me of him. I don't know what to say to that. You don't have to say anything. She reached over and took his hand. Just promise me you'll stay. At Titan. At Titan, with Hope, with... She hesitated. With me. Marcus looked at her. At this woman who had seen him at his worst and believed in him anyway. Who had risked everything to help him. Who had held his daughter while he went to war. I'm not going anywhere, she smiled. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. They pulled up to Titan's building just as Hope woke up. Daddy! Are we home? Marcus looked at the building, at Victoria beside him, at the life he'd built from nothing. Yeah, baby, we're home. He carried Hope inside Victoria, walking beside them. Employees stopped to stare. Word had spread about what happened, about the attack that nearly destroyed everything, about the man who had stopped it. Someone started clapping, then someone else. Within seconds, the entire lobby was applauding. People Marcus had never met celebrating a victory they barely understood. Jennifer, the receptionist, was crying. David was there, grinning from ear to ear. Even Brian, who had doubted him from the start, was nodding with respect. Marcus didn't know how to react. He'd never been applauded before, never been celebrated. Hope tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, why are they clapping? Because we won, baby." Won what? He thought about it, about everything he'd lost and everything he'd gained, about Denise and Harrison and the long road that had led him here. Everything, he said. We won everything. He carried his daughter through the crowd, Victoria at his side, toward a future that finally felt possible. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a mirror, adjusting a tie he still wasn't comfortable wearing. "Daddy, you look fancy." Hope was sitting on his bed, swinging her legs, watching him with an expression of pure delight. She was wearing a new dress, yellow with white flowers that Victoria had bought her last week. "You think so? You look like a prince." Marcus laughed. "I don't feel like a prince." "That's because you're nervous. Mommy used to say that princes get nervous too, but they go out and save people anyway." Hope tilted her head. "Are you going to save someone today?" "No, baby. Today I'm just talking to some people in a big room." "About the bad man." "Yeah, about the bad man." The trial had been scheduled for months. Harrison Cole faced 17 counts of computer fraud, corporate espionage, and extortion. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus's testimony was just one piece of a mountain that would bury Harrison forever. But it was the piece that mattered most. "Are you scared?" Marcus knelt down to Hope's level. "A little bit." "Why?" "Because the bad man will be there, and I'll have to look at him and talk about things that happened a long time ago, things that hurt." Hope reached out and touched his face the way Denise used to. "Daddy, you're the bravest person I know. You're going to do great." His throat tightened. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just didn't notice." He pulled her into a hug, breathing her in. She smelled like the strawberry shampoo Victoria had introduced her to, mixed with something that was purely hope, sunshine, and innocence and love. "I love you, baby." "I love you too, Daddy." The doorbell rang. Hope jumped up. "That's Miss Victoria." She ran to the door before Marcus could stop her, flinging it open to reveal Victoria standing there in a charcoal suit, her hair pulled back, looking every inch the powerful CEO she was. "Miss Victoria." Victoria crouched down and caught Hope in a hug. "Hey, sweetheart, you look beautiful." "Daddy said I look like a princess. But I think I look like a warrior princess, the kind that fights dragons." "I think you're absolutely right." Victoria stood, her eyes finding Marcus across the room. Something passed between them, it always did now, a current of understanding that had grown over months of late-night conversations and shared meals and the slow, careful building of trust. "Ready?" "No." "That's okay. I'll be there the whole time." "You don't have to." "Marcus." She walked toward him, stopping close enough that he could smell her perfume. "We've talked about this. I'm not letting you face him alone. The board can survive one day without me. You're more important." He wanted to argue. He'd been arguing for weeks, trying to convince her that she didn't need to be there, that she had better things to do than sit through hours of testimony about crimes that happened before she even knew he existed. But Victoria Chen didn't take no for an answer. He'd learned that the hard way. "Okay. Okay." She smiled. "That's it. No more fighting. I'm tired of fighting you. You always win." "That's because I'm always right." Hope tugged at Victoria's sleeve. "Are you going to marry Daddy?" The question hit like a thunderbolt. Marcus felt his face go hot. "Hope?" But Victoria just laughed. "Why do you ask?" "Because you're always here. And you look at Daddy the way Mommy used to. And you buy me things and take me to the zoo and read me stories at bedtime." Hope shrugged. "That's what mommies do." The room went very quiet. Marcus didn't know what to say. He and Victoria had never talked about the future. Not really. They existed in a comfortable present, dancing around words neither of them was ready to speak. Victoria knelt down to Hope's level again. Your daddy and I are very good friends. We care about each other a lot. But some things take time to figure out. Does that make sense? I guess. Hope looked at Marcus. But you do love her, right, Daddy? The directness of children. No filters, no games, just truth. Marcus looked at Victoria, at this woman who had believed in him when no one else would, who had stood beside him through the worst moments of his life, who had become somehow the person he thought about first when he woke up and last before he fell asleep. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. Victoria's breath caught. Her eyes glistened. Hope nodded with satisfaction. Good. Can we get pancakes after the trial? The federal courthouse was intimidating by design. Massive columns, marble floors, American flags standing sentinel at every entrance. It was a temple of justice built to remind everyone who entered that law was bigger than any individual, any corporation, any crime. Marcus walked through the metal detectors with Victoria beside him. Hope was with a trusted nanny. At the apartment, there was no way Marcus was letting his daughter anywhere near Harrison Cole, even in a controlled environment. The courtroom was already crowded. Reporters filled the gallery, notebooks and recorders at the ready. This case had made national news, a cyber criminal mastermind brought down by a former victim who refused to stay destroyed. Harrison sat at the defense table, flanked by expensive lawyers in expensive suits. He looked different than Marcus remembered, smaller, somehow diminished. Prison had not been kind to him. Their eyes met across the room. Harrison's expression was unreadable. No smirk, no sneer, just a flat emptiness that might have been defeat or might have been calculation. Marcus didn't look away. Mr. Washington. A court officer approached. You're scheduled to testify after the morning recess. The prosecution will call you at approximately 11. Thank you. Victoria squeezed his hand. I'll be right here. The morning session was a parade of technical experts and FBI agents laying out the scope of Harrison's crimes in methodical detail. 17 attacks across 5 years. Hundreds of millions in damages. Thousands of jobs lost. Marcus listened, remembering. He remembered the day he'd discovered the truth. The moment he'd realized that the man he trusted, the supervisor who'd promised to mentor him, was actually a monster hiding in plain sight. He remembered being fired, being escorted out like a criminal, while Harrison smiled and shook hands with executives who had no idea who they were really dealing with. He remembered the months of struggle, the nights in his car, the days when giving up seemed like the only option, and he remembered hope, always hope, the anchor that kept him from drowning. Mr. Washington, please take the stand. Marcus stood. His legs felt weak, but he walked anyway. Past the defense table, past Harrison's empty stare, past the whispered speculation of reporters who had written him off years ago. He placed his hand on the Bible. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The prosecutor approached. A woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to Victoria, with kind eyes and a reputation for putting criminals away. Mr. Washington, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? Marcus took a breath. Harrison Cole was my supervisor at Goldman Sachs. I worked under him for 3 years in the cybersecurity division. And during that time, what was your impression of him? He was brilliant, charismatic, everyone respected him. Marcus paused. But there was something else. Something I didn't see until it was too late. A coldness. A willingness to use people and discard them when they were no longer useful. Can you give the court an example? Marcus told them everything. He told them about his wife's illness, about taking leave to care for her, about returning to find his projects reassigned his access, revoked his reputation, systematically destroyed. He told them about the malware, about discovering that the attacks plaguing companies around the world weren't random. They were orchestrated by someone inside Goldman. Someone with the skills and the access and the arrogance to believe he'd never be caught. He told them about being fired, about the blacklisting, about the years of poverty and struggle and despair. His voice cracked several times. He didn't try to hide it. "Mr. Washington," the prosecutor said gently, "you've described how the defendant stole your work and destroyed your career. Can you tell the court what happened when you encountered his malware again 6 months ago at Titan Financial?" Marcus looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people chosen to decide Harrison's fate. "I was at Titan for a job interview, a position I desperately needed. I had $47 in my bank account. My daughter was with me because our babysitter had canceled." He told them about being mocked in the lobby, about Derek Manning trying to throw him out, about Victoria Chen giving him a chance when no one else would. He told them about the attack, about recognizing the code, about the 90 seconds that changed everything. The malware was identical to what I'd studied at Goldman. Same architecture, same patterns, same signature. He looked at Harrison. "I knew immediately who was behind it." "And what did you do?" "I stopped it. And then I gathered evidence. And then I set a trap." The prosecutor walked him through the technical details, the honeypot, the redirect, the capture of Harrison's data. The jury's eyes glazed over at times, but they perked up when Marcus described the threatening texts, the photo of hope. "The defendant sent you a picture of your daughter with a threatening message." "Yes." "What did that message say?" "Pretty daughter. Stay smart." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Even Harrison's lawyers looked uncomfortable. "How did that message make you feel, Mr. Washington?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Like I would do anything to protect her. Like nothing else in the world mattered except keeping her safe." "And is that why you set the trap for the defendant?" "Yes. He threatened my child. He'd already taken everything else from me. I wasn't going to let him take her too." The cross-examination was brutal. Harrison's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Phillips, who probably charged more per hour than Marcus used to earn in a week, approached the stand with a predator's smile. "Mr. Washington, isn't it true that you harbor significant resentment toward my client?" "Yes." "And isn't it possible that this resentment has colored your interpretation of events?" "My interpretation is based on evidence, code signatures, financial records, digital forensics. None of that is colored by anything." "But you were fired from Goldman Sachs, weren't you? For performance issues?" "I was fired because I took time off to care for my dying wife. The performance issues were fabricated by your client to cover his theft of my work." "That's quite an accusation. Do you have proof?" "Yes. The same work that was credited to Harrison after my termination appeared in his portfolio 6 months later. Identical algorithms, identical approaches. I have dated backups of my original code that predate his claims by 18 months. Phillips paused. This clearly wasn't the answer he'd expected. "Mr. Washington, you've admitted to using questionable methods to obtain evidence against my client. Hacking into his personal systems, redirecting malware. These actions could themselves be considered criminal. The FBI disagrees. They reviewed my methods and determined that I acted in defense of Titan Financial. Everything I captured was the result of Harrison's intrusion into our systems. I simply documented it." "But you hoped to harm my client, didn't you? You wanted revenge." Marcus considered the question carefully. "I wanted justice. There's a difference." "Is there?" "You set a trap specifically designed to capture and destroy my client. How is that justice rather than revenge?" "Because I gave him a choice." Marcus looked at Harrison. "I contacted him before releasing anything. I told him to turn himself in. I gave him 24 hours to do the right thing. And when he didn't, he made his decision. I made mine." Phillips tried several more angles questioning Marcus's credibility, his motives, his mental stability. But Marcus remained calm, steady, unshakable. 3 years of surviving had prepared him for this. Nothing this lawyer could say was worse than what Marcus had already endured. Finally, Philip sat down looking frustrated. The prosecutor had one more question on redirect. "Mr. Washington, why did you give the defendant a chance to surrender? After everything he'd done to you, why not simply turn over the evidence immediately?" Marcus thought about it. "Because I didn't want to become him." "Can you explain what you mean?" "Harrison destroyed people. He used them and discarded them without a second thought. He never gave anyone a choice. He just took what he wanted and moved on." Marcus paused. "I didn't want to be that. Even after everything he did to me, I wanted to believe that people could change. That given the opportunity, even someone like Harrison might choose to do the right thing. But he didn't. No, he didn't. And that's on him, not me. I gave him the chance. He made his choice. Now he faces the consequences." The prosecutor nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Washington. No further questions." The judge dismissed him. Marcus stepped down from the stand, his legs weak, his heart pounding. He'd done it. He'd said everything he needed to say. Victoria was waiting for him in the gallery. She took his hand as he sat down beside her. "You were incredible." "I was terrified. That's what made it incredible." The trial lasted another 3 weeks. Witness after witness testified to Harrison's crimes. Former colleagues who had been afraid to speak up. Victims whose companies had been destroyed. FBI agents who had spent years building the case. Through it all, Harrison sat motionless, his expression never changing. Whatever he was feeling, remorse, anger, fear, he kept it hidden behind a mask of indifference. Marcus attended every day. He needed to see it through. Needed to watch the man who had destroyed his life finally face judgment. On the final day, Harrison was allowed to make a statement. He stood slowly, looking older than his 52 years. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by prison clothes. The arrogance was gone, too worn away by weeks of testimony about his crimes. "I have nothing to say." His voice was flat. "Except that Marcus Washington is the only person who ever understood what I built. The only one who saw my work for what it really was." He looked at Marcus. "In another life, we could have been partners." Marcus said nothing. Harrison sat down. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, their faces told the story before the foreman spoke. "On the count of computer fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of corporate espionage, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of extortion, guilty, guilty, guilty. 17 counts, 17 convictions." Harrison showed no reaction. He simply stood when ordered, allowed himself to be handcuffed, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Marcus watched him go, waiting to feel something. Triumph. Satisfaction. Closure. What he felt was emptier than he expected, and sadder. "Are you okay?" Victoria asked. "I don't know. I thought I'd feel different." "How do you feel?" "Like it's over, but also like it doesn't matter as much as I thought it would." He turned to her. "Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense. Revenge is never as satisfying as we imagine. Justice is better, but it doesn't heal everything." She took his hand. "Some wounds need time, and love, and a life worth living. I have all of those things now. Do you?" He looked at her. "I have hope. I have a job I believe in. I have people who care about me." He squeezed her hand. "I have you." Victoria smiled. "About what Hope said this morning. We don't have to talk about that." "I want to." She stepped closer. "Marcus, I've spent my whole life building things. My career, my company, my reputation. I thought that was enough. I thought success was its own reward." She paused. But then you walked into my lobby with your daughter and your dignity, and your refusal to be dismissed. And everything I thought I knew about success changed. Victoria. Let me finish. These past 6 months watching you fight for your family, watching you rebuild from nothing, watching you become the man you were always supposed to be. It's the most inspiring thing I've ever witnessed. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. You don't have to say it back, Victoria continued. I know this is complicated. I know there's history. I know. Marcus kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative. But then she responded, and the kiss deepened. And for a long moment, there was nothing else in the world except the two of them. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. Does that mean what I think it means? It means I love you too, and I've been afraid to say it. Afraid that if I admitted it, something would take it away. He touched her face. But I'm done being afraid. I've spent 3 years living in survival mode. I want to live in hope instead. Hope, like your daughter. Exactly like my daughter. They walked out of the courthouse together hand in hand into a future neither of them could have imagined 6 months ago. 1 year later. The garden was beautiful in spring. White chairs lined the aisle filled with people who had become family. David and his wife Keisha Bryan Jennifer, the receptionist who had once mocked Marcus and now considered him a friend. Victoria's mother sat in the front row dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. At the altar, Marcus waited. He was wearing a suit that actually fit for once. Custom tailored. A gift from Victoria's board of directors, who had finally accepted that their CEO was marrying a man who had walked into their building with $47 and a dream. The music started. Hope walked down the aisle first, scattering flower petals with the seriousness of a surgeon performing delicate surgery. She was 7 now, growing so fast, Marcus could barely keep up. But her smile was still Denise's smile, and her eyes were still Denise's eyes. And every time he looked at her, he felt his wife's presence like a gentle hand on his shoulder. Then Victoria appeared. She was wearing a simple white dress, no designer extravagance, just elegance and grace. Her hair was down the way Marcus liked it, and she was crying already, happy tears streaming down her face as she walked toward him. "Hey," she whispered when she reached the altar. "Hey yourself. You ready for this?" "I've been ready since the day you told Derek Manning to apologize." The ceremony was short, but meaningful. They had written their own vows, and Marcus had agonized over his for weeks. Victoria, 3 years ago, I was a broken man. I had lost my wife, my career, my sense of who I was. I thought the world had given up on me, so I was ready to give up on myself. He took her hands. And then I walked into your building. And you looked at me, really looked, and you saw something worth saving. You gave me a chance when everyone else was ready to throw me away. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I can't promise you a perfect life. I can't promise there won't be hard days. But I can promise you this, I will never stop fighting for us. I will never stop believing in what we're building together. And I will spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of the faith you placed in me. Victoria was crying openly now. Marcus, I love you. And I'm so grateful that Hope was right. About what? About you being the one who makes me smile. They exchanged rings. They kissed. The crowd cheered. And in the front row, Hope jumped up and down, shouting, I told you so, I told you they were going to get married. The reception was held at a rooftop venue overlooking Manhattan. The same skyline Marcus had driven through as an Uber driver, wondering if he would ever climb out of poverty. The same city that had broken him and rebuilt him. Victoria's mother cornered him near the dessert table. Marcus. Mrs. Chen. Call me May. She was a small woman, but her presence was enormous. My husband built this company from nothing. He came to this country with $40 and a dream. When he died, I was afraid Victoria would lose herself in grief, that she would become so focused on protecting his legacy that she would forget to live her own life. Marcus nodded, unsure where this was going. But then you came along, and I watched my daughter come alive again. She laughs more. She worries less. She talks about the future, instead of just protecting the past. May took his hands. Thank you for giving my daughter back to herself. I didn't do anything special. I just loved her. That's exactly what was special about it. May smiled. Now go dance with your bride. She's waiting. Marcus found Victoria on the dance floor, Hope in her arms. The three of them swayed together to a slow song, a unit, a family. Daddy? Yeah, baby. Is Miss Victoria my mommy now? Marcus looked at Victoria. She nodded, tears in her eyes. If you want her to be yes, she can be your stepmom. That means she'll love you and take care of you and be there for you just like I am. But it doesn't mean you forget your first mommy. She's still watching over you. She's still part of who you are. Hope thought about this. So I have two mommies, one in heaven and one here. Exactly. That's a lot of mommies. Is that okay? Hope grinned. That's the best thing ever. She wrapped one arm around Marcus's neck and one around Victoria's, pulling them close. I love my family, she declared. We love you too, baby, Marcus said. More than you'll ever know. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing. 2 years after that, Marcus stood at the window of his office, a corner office now, whether he liked it or not, watching the sun set over Manhattan. The city was beautiful at this hour, all gold and orange and possibility. A knock on the door. Come in. David entered, tablet in hand. The board approved the new security initiative. Full funding. Everything you asked for. Good. Also, there's a young man in the lobby. Just arrived from Detroit. His resume is... David shook his head. Interesting. No degree. Gap in employment. Recently lost his wife. Has a daughter he brought with him because his childcare fell through. Marcus turned from the window. Send him up. Really? He doesn't meet any of our standard. David, send him up. 15 minutes later, Marcus was shaking hands with a young black man named Isaiah, whose daughter, a 4-year-old named Grace, was clinging to his leg with the same desperate hope Marcus remembered feeling 3 years ago. Thank you for seeing me, Isaiah said. I know I'm not qualified on paper, but I learn fast and I work hard, and I just need someone to give me a chance. Marcus smiled. Sit down, Isaiah. Tell me about yourself. He listened. He asked questions. He remembered what it felt like to be dismissed, overlooked, thrown away. And when the interview was over, Marcus extended his hand. Welcome to Titan Financial. You start Monday. Isaiah's eyes went wide. But the HR process, the background checks? I'll handle it. You just show up ready to work. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me. Prove me right. Marcus looked at Grace, who was watching with her father's eyes. Show your daughter what's possible when someone believes in you. Isaiah stood straighter, taller. Something in his expression shifted from desperation to determination. I will. I promise. I know you will. Marcus watched them leave, father and daughter, walking toward a future that had seemed impossible 30 minutes ago. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Dinner at 7. Hope wants pasta. He typed back, perfect, love you. Love you too, always. He looked around his office. The diplomas and awards on the walls. The photos of Hope and Victoria on his desk. The view of a city that had tried to break him and failed. 3 years ago, he had walked into this building with nothing. No money, no connections. No hope except the little girl holding his hand. They had laughed at him, dismissed him, tried to throw him out. And now, here he was, head of security for one of the most powerful financial institutions in the country, husband to a woman who loved him for exactly who he was, father to a daughter who had given him the strength to keep fighting when fighting seemed pointless. He thought about Denise, about what she would say if she could see him now. And he heard her voice, clear as the day they met, warm as the last time she held his hand. I'm proud of you, baby. I always knew you'd find your way. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the tears come. Happy tears, Grateful tears. The tears of a man who had finally found his way home. When he opened them, the sun had dipped below the horizon. The city was lighting up a million lights against the gathering dark. Each one a life. Each one a story. Each one struggling and hoping and fighting for something better. He picked up his jacket and headed for the door. Hope and Victoria were waiting. And that was all that mattered. Some people measure success by money, by power, by the size of their office, or the number of people who report to them. But Marcus Washington knew better. Success wasn't about what you accumulated. It was about what you built, who you loved, what you protected. It was about getting knocked down and standing back up. It was about walking into a building where everyone laughed at you and proving them all wrong. It was about holding your daughter's hand and promising her that everything would be okay and then making it true. Marcus Washington had been broken, dismissed, forgotten. But he had never stopped fighting, and in the end, that made all the difference. The elevator doors opened. He stepped inside. The building rose above him, 42 floors of glass and steel and ambition. But the only direction that mattered was down. Down to the lobby, out to the street, home to his family, home to his life. And Marcus Washington, the man who had nothing, the father who refused to quit, the husband who loved twice and lost once and found his way back, walked out into the night, ready for whatever came next. Because he had learned the most important lesson of all. The world doesn't owe you anything. Success doesn't find you. You fight for it. And no matter how dark the night, morning always comes for those who refuse to stop believing. Marcus Washington believed, and that belief changed everything.